Welcome to the Legacy Through Land podcast, where we're dedicated to empowering you on your journey to land ownership and management. I'm Tyler Markham, your host, and each week we'll dive deep into the world of land investing, management strategies, and the transformative experiences tied to owning your very own piece of dream dirt. With our expert guests, inspiring stories, and actionable advice, we're committed to helping you become a better land manager, hone your investing skills, and start building your family's legacy through land. Now, let's dive into this week's episode. We hope you'll enjoy.
I think today's guest will be a little bit easier for me to introduce because it's me. I am today's guest, and hopefully you guys will enjoy this recap. I've got just stuff that's been not brewing's too strong of a word, but just I've really come to reflect over the holiday season here on what 25 has been for us, some of the successes we've had in business, and then some of the things that I think are concerning, both in hunting and just in land, and just stuff that I'd like to just bring out into the open here, and maybe we can discuss this in the comments. But first off, I will tell you, this being episode 41, I believe, could be 42, but don't hold me to it. What I'm proud of myself for is we have done 40 episodes, and once we hit 52, it will have meant that my team, I will say first, my team has been successful in launching this podcast, because our goal was to do one episode a week, every single week for a year, no matter what. And there has definitely been times where that was a struggle, or we didn't have extra guests, or we didn't have, a bank of recordings to run to. That has been a struggle at times to get that done, but we have accomplished that. So once we get to episode 52, I don't know what we'll do, but I'll probably take everybody to at least dinner or something cool, because I have really appreciated all the help that it has taken to get this podcast out and consistently scheduled, and all of the things that you guys might think I do. All I do is get on here and blab. So thank you to my team for really helping me. It's been very, very impactful. And if you've listened and been part of this journey, or just joining this journey of the Legacy Through Land world, I appreciate you being here. I do. It means a lot to me. And it's definitely still this try, fail, adjust for me with the podcast, as much as we talk about that ideology with guests, and we talk about that with our guests week in and week out, and in their own stories. But that's very much the platform which we are operating on here. Is I'm still kind of fumbling my way through what I want this to be. But I trust that God will get us there. I trust that God will put this into the place it needs to be to create the most impact. And of course, for me, if you know nothing about me and you just stumbled here, I like to build people's belief. I just do. It's fun for me. It's fulfilling. I think that's part of who God's called me to be, is that if I can teach you or help you believe you can do it, we have accomplished one of the hardest things, which is getting you to start. So here is going to be, in kind of a rambling order, my call it State of the Union, or what I've learned in 2025, and some of the things that I think we should wrestle with and will wrestle with, both personally and professionally, in my company, Legacy Acres Land Company, and as a just person in land. I'd love to tell you guys that this is sponsored by Celsius, but it's not. But I'm going to drink one while we're talking. So let's have some fun together here. And before we jump in, if you guys are listening to this shortly after the holidays, which you will be, hope you had a great Christmas and a great New Year's. And we can just go ahead and kind of set aside the elephant in the room. I was at our beloved Buckeyes Cotton Bowl game. My wife surprised me with tickets to the game, and it was amazing. The environment was amazing. The trip for us was amazing. It was so, so awesome. Obviously not the outcome we wanted. I'm not going to make this podcast about what I think has gone on or whatever, but at the end of the day, the Ohio State Buckeyes are 12-2, and that's an incredible year. They beat the team up north, and we have a freshman quarterback, and we beat Texas in our stadium. And there's just a lot that you could say that was really, really good. So obviously I'm frustrated with how things went. I could have told you 2 drives into that game that we were going to lose that game. You could feel it. You could feel the energy in the air, that it was massively shifted to the Hurricanes. And they earned it. They won in the trenches. They beat us fair and square. They beat us in just about every phase of the ball. So we'll set that aside. I still love my Buckeyes. And yes, if you followed me since the beginning, I moved to Ohio 3 years ago from West Virginia. I was kind of a closet fan of the Buckeyes when we lived in West Virginia, and I'm like full tilt fanboy now. And I'm definitely a bandwagoner. That's like 100% true. But I'm a pretty committed bandwagoner because I think we were at 5 games this year. We were at 7 games last year. I was at the Tennessee CFP game last year. That was one of the most amazing games I've ever been to. Clearly, I just said I was at the Cotton Bowl. I spent lots of money to support the Buckeyes. So call me a bandwagoner, but I think I'm a pretty good one. So anyways, let's jump into takeaways for 25. And I've got some topics that I really just want to talk with you guys about and see what your thoughts are. And these are things that have been discussed, but we're going to use this platform to talk even deeper about them. But first, let's go through, for me as a company, I'll tell you some of our successes were that we have trended in the right direction. We have done more business deals, more land deals than the year prior every year. Started in this full time in 23. Just started putting my blinders on to any other real estate asset class. And we have only worked with dirt since 23. I can't imagine doing other things right now. Not that I probably wouldn't do those other, real estate ventures in the future. But right now I'm really content with just working and mastering what it is to transact on dirt. So we did a lot more deals. Overall, I'm very happy with how things went. I will say some of the headwinds that we had in 25 that I think affected us from ultimately hitting our very euphoric goals that I gave us in 25, we fell just a bit short. But if you measure only by, hey, did you hit the goals that your team and you set out for each other in the beginning of 25, the answer is no. But if you measure, did you do more deals? Did you create great profit margins? Did you hire new people? Did you build better systems? Did you kind of find yourself? Did you screw some stuff up that you learned from? Yes. The answer is yes to all that. So I'm not measuring only from we didn't hit the goal. I'm measuring from did we win in the big picture? And we did. We did. So did more deals, transacted more deals, like we're trending upward. But I think some of the headwinds that we had in 25 that I don't think you will see in 26, and I'm obviously not an economist or anybody that really studies intimately like interest rates and the trajectory of where all that's going to go. And, what happened with what Donald Trump said this week or, any of that, I don't really intimately follow. I stay fairly busy being a dad and being a business owner and being a husband and trying to be a friend and all the other good things that I think are more important. But the headwinds were interest rates was one of the biggest ones. At the start of 25, I would have to say if we were looking at a recreational land interest rate mortgage, even with really good credit, you'd be in the high 5s, low 5s, high 4s. And at a certain point of the year, you were in the high 7s, low 8s. And so obviously understanding that the largest portion of what we sell is recreational land, which I would call a secondary, market, a secondary asset class or a secondary purchase class to someone purchasing their primary home or, their primary residence. This is a secondary purchase venture. So that, of course, had an effect on the outcome of how much we could have sold or what we did sell. I will say again, and I've continued to say it, and I'll always say it, I think people pay a lot more attention to interest rates than they should because what I'll say, and I will even assert this about land because there's a lot of people in the comment feeds lately on some of our social feeds that are saying that land doesn't appreciate 7 to 8% a year. And I will discredit you. I believe it does. Or I will rebuttal you, I should say. I believe it does. And it has. Historically, it has. And even in COVID years, it was like 20% that it went up. So if you even take a 7-year average, I think you can see a 5 to 7% at least, maybe even 8% increase in that land a year. Well, what does that mean? Get back to the interest rate point. Well, if the land can keep pace in appreciation that the interest rate that you're financing is at, if it can keep pace or outpace it, I think you need to pay way less attention to the current interest rate and pay more attention to the piece of land you're going to get because the land train never stops moving. This is what we're constantly talking about. Love it or hate it, it's not going to stop moving. There's like a million carts on this train. and there's unlimited coal in this train and it's going to move whether you get on it or not. And so for me, it's getting harder and harder for anyone else to get on the land train. I will admit that 100%. I think our job and my job on this podcast and my job as a person of faith and a guy in land is to empower you to take all the tools you can from me for free and go and buy your first piece of land. Because if you don't do it now, it's going to get harder and harder and harder. And I very strongly do not believe land prices will ever go down. I don't think you should, I think that's a terrible idea to ride on, is to wait and sit on the sidelines and wait on things to go down. I don't believe they will. I just don't. Hopefully I'm wrong. Because we would all benefit if I was wrong, but I don't think I will be wrong. I don't think land's going anywhere. So interest rate, to put a bow on that, you always heard this in houses. I always hear date the rate, marry the house. And meaning go buy the house you want, fall in love with the house that you want, go buy the house, even if the interest rate's too high, because you can always refinance and lower that interest rate throughout the life of living in that house. Marry the house, date the rate. I kind of feel the same way with land, marry the land, date the rate, because we have told you guys, and one of our great helpers in our company and someone that we always send any potential buyer of ours to is Amanda Folk with Rural First. And they are, a part of the farm credit ecosystem. And they are, to me, the largest land lender in the country. They're the most, they have the most appetite for land that I know of any other lending institution in the country. If there's an option, they can give it to you. And she has some really cool options. So go back to the podcast that I did with Amanda Falk if you're interested in knowing more about land options. They can empower you to buy your own first piece of land. And so I think that, and the other thing I'm coming to mind is they even have patronage, and I'm going to butcher this, but essentially if rates go down after you buy that piece of land, they'll help you refinance it for a really low cost. And it's not even full loan, new paperwork and all that. For a really low cost, you can get the newest rate that's lower. So you literally have nothing to lose, but someone else buying the piece of land that could have been yours that got you on the land train, because the minute you get on the land train, that appreciation that I will argue will either keep pace with or outpace your interest rate on the mortgage. That land appreciation is yours the day you get on the train. As you watch the train go by and you just spray graffiti on the carts and you just sit and watch and hope the train's going to slow down or maybe a cart will derail. Good luck. Get on the train. That's the advice I'll give you for 26. I don't care if you buy from me or not. I would obviously love for you to buy from us. I think we're really good at what we do and we work really hard to try and put good inventory on the market. But that's not what this podcast is about. It's not about if you're going to buy a piece of land from me or not. It's how can we help empower you to buy land. So interest rate was one of the biggest headwinds. That for sure was one of the biggest headwinds. Election year, I think that's the other one. This was technically an election year. We're kind of seeing the, obviously the fruition or whatever you want to say of year one of an election year. I just think that was part of it. And everybody was just kind of thinking through what they were going to do. And here we are. So there was a few headwinds. Interest rate was the biggest one though, that I think affected kind of where is the market going or whatever, and how fast was it pacing. To tailor this to 26, I am told by several people and constituents that I trust, interest rates are going down. So the thing that most people don't do well at is when you hear that information and you think, gosh, I'm going to wait till interest rates go down and then I'm going to buy something. Guess what? Everyone else said the same thing. And now the market is flooded with buyers because they're excited and they're euphoric. And now prices are going crazy again because everybody's competing over the same piece of land because now everyone wants to buy. Buy now before the interest rate gets as low as it may get in 26. And I don't know what that number is, but I believe it's going to be lower. Buy now and then refinance it when that rate gets lower, because the piece of property that you're wanting to buy or that might be the one for you could be bought either A, at a better price right now, or B, with way less competition right now than if you wait until the rate is low. It's just I'm going to wait till these iPads go on sale and then I'll just go to Best Buy and get one. Well, they only have 10. And if you wait, you may not get one. So, crude analogy, but it is fairly true. So that's my last piece of advice about interest rates and all that and what's going on. So let's talk about, I guess I'm sandwiching this. I mean, for me, there's been a lot that we've done well at. My company, I'm very proud of, and myself, I'm very proud of for 2025. There's been a lot we've done well at, but there's been things that I've kind of uncovered and just wrestled with, worried with. Worried is too strong of a word because I hate saying that word. I think God obviously tells us fear not over 365 times in the Bible for a reason. But things that I've been aware of that I think have let deposit in my soul to the point that I would just like to talk through this today on today's podcast. Here are some of the things as we shift gears into 2026 that I'm worried about. And some of these are going to be for the hunting culture. Some of these are going to be for the land culture. And worry, again, is probably not the right word, but I'm curious of your guys' opinions because I believe these are factors that are actively muddying the water, let's say. And, as a diehard hunter, let me preface a lot of what I'm going to say with, I got into land because I love hunting. I got into land because I know who God is to me when I'm out in the peace and the silence and the still of the outdoors. Doesn't mean you have to be a hunter to experience that, but I got into buying and selling land as a business because I already loved land in my gut and in my soul. Loved it. And so some of my most pivotal, life-changing, fondest moments, are all centered around dirt in some way, shape, or form. And there's started to be some things inside of hunting that I'm really starting to worry with. So none of this is going to be stuff that's like, hey, this has never been discussed before. This is earth-shattering news. I just want to take more time to talk through what I think are some of the issues, and I'm intimately interested. Please comment. What is your opinion on some of these things? So here's the big one that I see trending when we talk about selling land and kind of some of the things that we see as we face the questions from prospective buyers. And maybe these are questions you might ask, and I'm just going to bring these out into the table to discuss, do I think these are valid questions or not? My question is, how are we measuring success? How do we measure success in buying a piece of land? Or let's say, how do we measure the success of what for me, this one's the easy one to talk through that's quickly becoming an issue for me, is are we measuring success on a piece of land by what size the deer are that currently exist on that immediate block of land? Are we measuring that? Are we utilizing that as our largest measuring stick or litmus test for whether this piece of property is, and I air quote, good or not? And it's kind of draining. It's just really kind of draining because here's the reality. And I'm going to open up with kind of where, how much time do we spend and money do we spend to try and appease the needs of buyers? And it's a lot. And I'm going to tune you in on what that is that I did in 2025 that I'm not sure we'll do as much in 26, which is we happily use Tacticam Reveal products. We love Tacticam Reveal products. And there's could be obviously another debate for another day, which I would love to have, about cellular cameras and their impact on hunting and all those things. But here's the reality of how hard I've worked to appease a buyer who says, what deer do you have on the farm? What deer do you currently have on the farm? I'm running over 75 cellular trail cameras across 10 counties on properties we own, properties I have leased, properties I have permission on, properties we own as project farms, my home farms, everything. I've got over 75 cellular trail cameras. And all of that is in an attempt to show you the top quality bucks on that one piece of ground. And in the beginning, I was super excited about that. I get it. It's exciting, and I think that 8-year-old little boy in all of us, or that 8-year-old little girl, and that mystery of what could be there, what is there, that's what keeps us all going. Of course, you go for us, we have enough properties. We've been blessed to be able to need to buy more cameras. And it started with probably 40 in 2025, and it's escalated to now 75 cellular cameras. Well, what if we don't picture a 150 or a 160 or a 170? What if we don't picture the freak nasty, the old Big 10, What if we don't? Do you, number one, do you write this property off? Oh, it doesn't have any big bucks. Oh, wow. Really good luck selling that with a 130-inch buck. Like, this is what we've seen. Comments, posts, threads. Good luck asking X price per acre because it's only got a 130 on it. Are we only measuring that? Like, is that all we're measuring? Because for me, that is a very, very shallow victory and hollow victory winning spot to be. If the only thing we're going to measure when we look at potentially purchasing a recreational piece of property is what does it currently have on it today? And my favorite part about most of that is some of these tracts are 20 to 80 acres. But we don't happen to know that the neighbor does or doesn't have a 10,000 pound gravity feeder 40 yards off the property line beside of our 40 acre piece. We don't take a picture of any of their big bucks that they've raised that live on that feeder or live in their standing cornfields or their whatever. We didn't take a picture of them. So you're like, oh my gosh, there's only a 130 on this property. So forget that. Like, is that really all we're going to measure? And I think for us, it's tiring because we're keeping these cameras running. I paid a guy almost full time money to run these cameras for us this fall, keep cameras charged up, keep solar panels working, keep baiting, keep bait out, and we'll get there next. Is that all we're going to measure? Because to me, it's a real fallacy of what we're using as the top line valuator for a piece of property. Now, again, let's go to the wide other latitude here of, and we'll call it Chris Brackett's whitetail equity. I like Chris Brackett. I love the words whitetail equity, and I believe he's right. You can create whitetail equity in your properties over time of the management, the improvements, and the layouts, and all the things you can do. I believe it. I'm fully subscribed to that. But when you look at what we sell and what you see a lot on the market is properties that are only currently unimproved or just have been recently ripped apart and improved like we do. And there's straw and seed and the water holes are fresh and the food plots are dozed. And oh my goodness, God forbid it doesn't rain that fall. We get murdered for that. We'll get to that one. But we're now only measuring that there's 5 cellular cameras on that farm and there's a 140 on all those cellular cameras. So that's clearly the ceiling. And I think I know we're really missing out. We're really missing out. And I fear for the hunting world and the land buyer avatar together. The land buyer who is a recreationalist, outdoor enthusiast who wants to hunt and buy land. I really fear that we're measuring this wrong. I do. And so for us as Legacy Acres Land Company, you're going to see an intentional push. I'm making a hire that I'm really excited about for 2026. That's going to be a full-time content creator and just to really help us right the ship. And we'll talk about that once they come on. But I'm really excited to start retelling a story or shifting the narrative to land and recreationalism and buying land and crying on top of that highest elevation of that piece of land that you buy and thanking God for it and looking over this dirt that you can create so many amazing chapters for your family. Like, that should be the thing we measure. Not does it have a 170 on it today. And I'm going to work harder in our company to shift the narrative. And guys, please hear what I'm saying, because you can go watch social reels that I put out and you can go look at our company's land listings. And we have a lot of farms that have great deer, and it's exciting to talk about big deer because I love to chase big deer. You love to chase big deer. Well, we all love big bucks and we can't lie. Well, if that's all we talk about, though, I just don't want to miss the story. Like, I just don't want to sell the story short. I just don't want to not honor God by how good God is to give us land by just only measuring it on what size are the bucks. I just don't want to do that. And I want to make a conscious effort to help shift that narrative. And I'm challenging you. I am challenging you. If you're going to look at a listing I have or any other agent or any other land seller, whomever, if you're going to only look at something and be like, well, that's all the trail cameras you got? Like I literally, I should bring this up. I wish my editors could put this on the screen right now, but like we got a comment the other day on a listing that already went pending, by the way. So a little sideburn, old Facebook keyboard warrior. Dude is like, well, great. All your trail camera pictures are at night. Oh, what a great farm. Like, are we literally kidding right now? Like, really? That's really what we're worked up about? Is that the pictures that I happened to put on the listing that I thought were the best pictures of the best deer there happen to be at night? But you think that somehow means like they don't reside there ever in the day? Okay. So I hope you guys know where I'm going, but we're going to make an intentional push to rewrite the narrative that it's not just about shooting big deer and hunting big deer. And as a little asterisk here, God is so good. God is so good that I believe my chase for a big deer or your chase for a big deer or someone else's chase for a big deer can be honored as long as, all caps, underline, bold, italics, as long as we honor the whole journey and everything in between, not just was it 170. Hey man, did you tape him? Like, I get it. And I love it. I do. And the days of like popping up to the check station and popping the tailgate and there's a giant and one side of the rack doesn't even fit, inside the truck bed or the tonneau cover without it being open. Like, dude, I'm in, man. Like, that's awesome. That is awesome. We're really, 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 really selling ourselves short, and the generation behind us is not going to keep up if we only measure, hey, did you have 7 years of sheds and 14 encounters and 12 years of history? And then you shot him at 35 yards and had it on 4K mirrorless. And like if that's all we're going to do, it's not going to work long term. It's really not going to work. And we are under attack as hunters and outdoor recreationalists. I'm not going to just say as landowners, as hunters. The hunting space, if you haven't already noticed, is under attack. Under attack by a very, very, very unified. And this is all plagiarizing what Mike Rex said. And I intimately agree. I'd love to have Mike Rex on. Mike is the president of the Ohio Wildlife Council. I listened to his podcast with the hunter guys, and Mike said there's a very, very unified front competing against us as hunters, which is insurance lobbyists and all the people that don't want deer because they don't want to pay claims and they don't want to do all the, hold on. Woo. If you don't sneeze, it'll ruin your day. But there's a very unified front that is against us as a very ununified community of hunters. Very ununified. And I just want to do a better job of rewriting that narrative. That's what I want to do. I want to get us back to where God actually wanted us to be, to just love the land. And if you want to chase big bucks, and so do I, then let's go do it. But we're also going to make great the story of the first spike that someone shoots, the story of the 8-point that someone shoots. It's their best 8-point, and it's the deer they shot on their first piece of land, and they cried because they never thought they'd own land that they shot a deer on, that it died and lived and died on their own land. Great. We're going to honor that just as much. Like we have to. We are headed in the wrong direction. So, are we only measuring in inches? That's the question that I think in 26 we need to rewrite the narrative to, which is stop measuring land only in inches. And I'm asking for your guys' help and accountability, because you're not going to see me like about phase and put out listing content for our properties that happen to have premium deer on them or premium genetics or in a premium genetic area. Like, I'm not going to not say that, but I'm also not going to be like, oh yeah, there's a 172 triple drop down here today, and he's going to be 5 and he'll be 6 next year. And that we're not going to do. That we're not going to do, because that is only glorifying a short window there. Or let's say, a minimalistic picture of what that land really could be and what that land really is. So that's that one. And I got another one here. I got another one that I want to talk through. And today's podcast isn't going to be the longest podcast in the world, but it's going to be, these are thought provokers that I really, really want to get out to you guys, get out to socials, get out to wherever you want to share them, because I believe it's time for us to really dive deeper amongst ourselves to save what is great about hunting and what God intended for us with hunting. And this starts with me, believe me, as the leader of whatever, having a podcast and a land company and loving hunting and all these things. It starts with me, and it will. And that's why I'm telling you, these are the things that I'm wrestling with in 26 that I'm going to be intentional with. Second one, there's three. There's three. So this one isn't I haven't figured out. This one isn't and I haven't figured out. It is a question that I'm wrestling with that I would like to know what your guys' thoughts are. And here's the question. We're going to talk about land splitting, lot splits, subdividing land. You know, you take and you can name whoever you want. There's some very prominent names in my market that do this quite often. And it's all they do. You know, it's their business model. And I actually don't fault them at all for their business model. But here's my question. And this is posed to both avatars that I serve on this podcast, both outdoor recreationalists and let's call them hunters, and people aspiring to buy land, manage land, do better on land, whatever. The question is, and answer it with whichever hat you choose to wear. You might wear both. Is lot splits and splitting up land, buying a 100-acre tract of land and selling it in 20-acre tracts or 10-acre tracts, is it wrong? Is it wrong? And this is why I wrestle with this, because the hunter in me, and I could give you guys a real life example of a 195-acre farm that we sold in Meigs County, Ohio, this last fall. That thing had road frontage for days. We could have cut the snot out of it. And there's a company that would have bought it that would have cut the snot out of it and had 10 and 15-acre tracts throughout. Had all the frontage it ever needed, road frontage and access it ever needed to cut that thing harder. The hunter in me and the outdoor recreationalist said it's 195 acres. The only bummer is that it's not 195,000 acres. I want the biggest tract we can have so that we can build something great there and potentially help sustain a herd of wildlife there. All right? Like that's what you want. But here's the reality. Let's speak to the potential issues from the hunter hat only. Well, the hunter hat only is that on that 195 acres, had we sold it to one person, and let's just make an avatar that has 3 boys or 3 other hunters in the family, 3 girls, whatever, 3 other hunters. So you put 4 hunters on that 195 acres, potentially selling it to one person, one family. So now we put 4 hunters on there. But if we parcel it, and let's say we even take and sell it in 25-acre parcels, you're basically about 8 parcels now on that 195 acres. So we're just shy of 200 acres, 25-acre parcels. You got 8 parcels now we sell as hunting ground, quote unquote. Well, let's say the same avatar buys it and they have potentially 4 hunters in their family. So you go from 8 parcels with 4 hunters. We now have 32 hunters on 200 acres. And we're still talking about the same public resource. And when I say public resource, I kind of hate those words. This is a God resource. But for sake of conversation, technicality, it's a public resource, which is the deer. And measure this with deer, turkeys, coons, rabbits, whatever you want to hunt, whatever you want to do. But the measurement typically is going to be your deer hunters. So our deer hunting world, now we have 32 hunters. Like, do I believe in my head, I can rest my head on a pillow and say we took a 200-acre farm, split it into 25-acre tracts. Now there's potentially 32 hunters, and that farm's going to hold a 170 plus. If this is right, again, all we're measuring, that farm's going to hold a 170 plus in that block. Is there a chance of that every year? I think without all the people in that block, 32 potential people involved, getting on the same game plan and like having town hall meetings together and like really coming up with a robust plan to manage the deer, that's a lot of people to sign up for that. And I don't see it happening. I don't. So for the hunter, the lot splits are a problem to me in that regard. Now, let's tell you what the lot splits are a problem for the other hat, and then we're going to talk about the positives of both of these. I want your guys' opinions. Comment below what you really think, because I don't know how we win. That's the thing. For me as a land company, I don't know how we win. There's avatars that we can serve, and I think we'll lose no matter what. We'll make one avatar mad over the other. We cannot win, and that's what I'm wrestling with. So how does that hurt the just general land buyer, if we go to that hat and we take a 200-acre farm and we split it into 25 acres, here's how it hurts that person. And you guys, this is me just giving you all the cards in my vest for 2026. So if you ever accuse me of having slick tendencies, just listen to my podcast. I give all the secrets away. It hurts the just general land buyer because now I'm offering a 25-acre tract and I can ask more for that tract and you're going to pay more for that tract. It's more affordable, but it means it will sell for more. So now I'm going to get more money for that 25-acre tract than I would have if I had sold it all as 200 acres. I'm going to get more money. That's the problem for the land buyer that's trying to buy some land is you guys are going to beat it, in the comment feed here, you're already stretching your fingers of, oh, yeah, they just jacked the price up when they split these lots and get them sky high, and then the average working man can't afford them. Okay, so question. Could you afford it when it was 200 acres at $3,800 an acre? Or can you afford it closer when it's 25 acres at $4,800 an acre? I'm making some numbers up here. If the answer is no on both, then kindly see yourself out of the chat. Unfortunately, I don't mean that in a mean way, but there's just no good way to debate this. Like I said, we're going to lose no matter what. So it could hurt the land buyer. If you parcel that, they're going to have to pay more. Now, how can it help? Let's go back to the hunter. How can it help the hunter and or just the land buyer? And this is the part that's emotional for me is both avatars, how it can help them by splitting land is, and we just alluded to this, is you got the guy that says, well, I can't afford 200 acres at $750,000. Hunting's a rich man's game. And, this is my favorite, complainer voice. So just deal with it. But hunting's a rich man's game. It is. Unfortunately, it is. I am not going to discredit that at all. My job to help empower you on this journey of it is a rich man's game. My job is to help empower you with the knowledge to be able to go out and do this. And I hope if you listen to enough of my podcasts, we're doing a good job of it. I also am going to do some coaching. I'll offer that in 26. I just don't want to ever be a guru. I will offer some private client coaching if you're really serious about your land game. But that's not the point of the podcast today. If you're interested, reach out to me. You can find me on socials. So how does it help that hunter? Well, you and I both, let's say we have some kids. Say we don't. My wife and I, we're getting married. We are married, newly married. Our dream is to own some land that we can go out and hunt on. We can hang a stand on. We can harvest an animal, and we can fill our freezer on our own land with an animal from our land. If you can't afford $750,000, then you can't get into the game. So as Legacy Acres Land Company, for example here, if I don't offer you something that you can afford to get you in the game, you'll never buy. You'll never be able to buy. You'll never buy something. So I don't serve you well if all I want to offer is, hey, it is a rich man's game. We got a $750,000 piece of property, and here's the offer. Hope you can figure it out. You can't ever buy it from me. So you're going to go buy from someone else. Or you're just not going to buy, right, until you find a piece that's small enough you can afford. That's a problem to me because I want to help you. Because to me, I don't think I'm honoring God. I don't think I'm honoring anybody and anything, or let alone honoring God with running a land company if I can't provide to you what you actually want, which is to buy some land. And you have to be able to afford it. And I have to understand, and you have to know that whatever you buy that's land, if you don't plan on building a house on it immediately and you don't just have nothing and you have cash saved and you're just living in a camper, then this is a secondary purchase for you. This has to come past all of your daily living expenses, including a primary mortgage on a house and cars and all the things that you likely have. I'll never help you get in the game if I don't offer you something that gets you in the game. That bothers me. As a hunter, that bothers me. So go over to the other side, just the land enthusiast hat. It's very similar. Obviously, you get it. The land enthusiast hat says the same thing. I don't even hunt, but we want to buy some land and raise some animals or just have our kids go and frolic. And we live in Columbus and we just want to get out of town and we want to buy something in Southern Ohio, or we live in North Carolina and we just want to buy something to retire on eventually. And we like Ohio and blah. Okay, cool. They will say the same thing. They can't afford $750,000 for 200 acres. Okay. Well, if you sell them 25 acres, they can now afford it. They can afford it, and they're basically the same. They don't have the hat that you do of wanting to harvest, animals and hunt and fish and all those things on their own land, sometimes so much, as they do have we would just love to take our kids camping, or we'd just love to have a place to go and be for the weekends, or ride a four-wheeler, or do whatever. The American dream is to own land. That is the American dream. We didn't hear the American dream is to own 200 acres of land. The American dream is to own 1,000 acres of land. We didn't add a qualifier or a quantifier to that dream. The American dream is to own land. Well, again, if we take a 200-acre farm and parcel it out and put in driveways, and we do just like some of our competitors would do, and we offer smaller parcels, we give you the chance to own some land. So the question for 26 is, and I don't have the answer, guys, and I'm telling you that I'm going to actively wrestle with this. I've been in prayer about it. I've just constantly, I think it's really hard for us to decide as a land company, do we not serve a hat over the sake of public criticism, or do we serve all hats and know God is good no matter what? And I truly want to know your answer. Because if I don't serve the hat, let's just play, devil's advocate here. If we only try and serve the hat that, look, we are diehard hunters and we are after protecting the public resource, we care intimately about the public resource, we're diehards, then we probably lean heavier against splitting some land. But at the same token, how many of you listen to this podcast grew up going with your dad to that big 20-acre farm that he always had access to hunt? My uncle had 25 acres. They had 30 acres. That's a lot to some of you. That's a lot. Well, if I take a 300-acre farm and carve 10 30-acre farms out of it, and some of you are less happy and some of you are happy as can be. I don't know who to serve. So I've been in prayer about it. Is lot splitting good? Comment below. All right, we're going to the next one, like one of the deepest ones, and I'm still wrestling with this one as well. And, I could have picked like a million topics, but to me, when I started thinking through, what is a recap for 2025 with things that I think kept coming up, these were those three topics: was lot splitting, and how are we measuring what success is on land, and what is the item we're putting in our scope to measure the success with? And that one came up. The last one. I'd like to spell this more special, but the great deBAIT. Baiting. We're going straight into a hunting-ism here in Ohio and all the other bait states. This obviously has been wildly and widely talked about and hotly debated. But I'm telling you, if you listened earlier, that I have 75 cellular cameras running, most of them year-round. And I'm also going to preface you with the study that I've done, unofficial. The study I have done has involved 75 cellular cameras across over 10 counties in Ohio. And I say that incredibly humbly. This is how blessed we've been able to be this year to have a sample size like that. But the other part of the study is I have probably fed, as of today, 1,500 bushels of corn out, whether through feeders or bait sites, camera inventory sites, whatever cool words you want to call them. Lots of corn. And I really struggle with baiting in Ohio. I'm really struggling with baiting in Ohio. So if you follow me closely enough, this is where the immediate criticism is going to come. I shot my deer this year in Ohio over a corn pile. Said it. So I'll save you the Googling. I shot my deer this year in Ohio over a corn pile. And I'll also be the first guy that when we initiate, let's get together as a body of hunters in Ohio. And there's already guys doing this. There's already guys. Kevin Mullet has already got a group doing this, trying fiercely to lobby against allowing baiting in Ohio. I'll be the first guy to sign it, fund it, help spread the word. I'm going to be the first guy to meet you there. I can't stand it. I think it's ruining what's really great in Ohio and other states. So just to unpack a little bit of, but you just said you just killed your deer over it. That's true. When the hunt comes out for my deer, and I have my 3-year-old daughter with me and all the encounters we had, there's tons of story about this deer, the food plot that was planted and where that deer stayed in the field in this food plot that was planted, and a gravity feeder closer to this blind and all these things. The feed was placed in a corner of that field to pull that deer to where I could self-film myself killing him. Also, and none of this is an excuse. I go out to Illinois. I'm about to go literally in a couple of days for a final trip. I can't tell you how much I love that there's no bait. And I can't tell you how much success I've had out there over different hunting methods than bait. The problem in Ohio is like that deer alone. I know for a fact, the deer that I killed, I know for a fact there is spinner feeders and other gravity feeders and other bait sites within 200 yards of every direction of my little tiny property I killed him on that he had that option at. And you can't argue with me. I had the best food plot in that whole area. I did. And I had a beautiful gravity feeder that was never empty, and those deer could go there and eat as much as they want, whenever they want. Always hunted that farm with the right wind, never pressured them, like you name it, did it all. That deer had bait options anywhere he wanted. It wasn't cool that I had the bait. I had the bait to stop the deer so I could self-film the shot. I would have taken that bait away happily. Problem is, neighbors wouldn't. That's the problem. That's the problem here. So here's where I think we're headed, and this is what's sad. There's kind of two issues that I'm concerned about here that we'll wrap this podcast up with, and we're going to camp out here for a minute. So don't go ahead and pause me yet. If you just got to your work, pause it and hit me on the way home. But there's two issues that I'm seeing with the baiting, and we're going to deBAIT. Number one, and it's totally tied to trail cameras, and I also believe cellular cameras, but it's this ideology that we've high graded our deer. And I believe we have. We've high graded our deer in Ohio for like 20 plus years, maybe even 40, 30 years now, since baiting has become pretty prevalent. Let's just even give it 15 years. Sure. Let's just be super conservative. 15 years that we have high graded our deer, meaning the cellular camera and or trail cameras has given us the ability to, when we put bait out, we get a really good, accurate sample size of whatever the top tier bucks are in the area. And again, let's just paint a picture here. I'm talking about throwing corn on the ground, not in a feeder they need to get used to, not in a spinner feeder, which I hate spinner feeders unless your deer are tame, not any of these other feeding methods that I also have. I'm talking about throwing corn on the ground in the woods or at a field edge or wherever that is like, this is just, wow, to a deer, this just naturally occurred. That's what I'm talking about. If we sample that, it gives us the ability to inventory what is the herd in that area. Usually, okay, asterisk, usually fairly quickly. Depending on the time of the year, all those things, we're not going down that road, but it gives you the ability to inventory what's there. Well, then you make your pick from what's there and you hold out for what's there of the top 1 or 2% of the bucks, and that's what you hold out for. And the problem is with this high grading that I fear baiting has really, really, really assisted in is we're actually shooting the best 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds every year, sometimes 2-year-olds, if we're after big bucks. Again, I like big bucks and I can't lie. This is all under the ideology of the thing that I'm talking about is a problem for us to only measure. If we're after the big bucks, we might be shooting a 3 or a 4-year-old every year because those deer will come into corn no matter what. They're not as mature to understand the danger. Okay, argue me, debate me. I'll meet you in a parking lot. They're not as understanding of the danger. They haven't encountered as much danger. They're learning. This is a learned associative pressure that they learn over time. And if you have, and guys, we can't even like debate this. If you have a 120-inch 9-year-old, let's just say ancient deer, 8-point, and you have a 155-inch 3-year-old, 10-point, dude, that 3-year-old's 5 years old, like quick. He is quickly 5 years old. And even if you don't care and he's just 3, we still shoot him. Well, I'm not saying without bait we wouldn't still do that, but the bait affords us the opportunity much easier to shoot the highest grade deer. Then the 120-inch 8-point continues to live and breed and spread its genetics into the woods and continues to degrade our woods. And that's where the term high grading comes from. And I cannot agree more with Mr. Don Higgins. Don said on a podcast one time that the removal of bait would be the great equalizer. And I cannot agree more that you remove bait from your hunting operation. It is the great equalizer when you might be one of those people that we just talked about earlier that only owns 20 acres or 5 acres or 7 acres or 2 acres or whatever small tract you have that has bait on it, and your 200-acre neighbor, which is, let's pretend is me and my manicured food plots, and my standing crops, and my established clover fields, and all that, all this stuff. You can be equal with me if we both bait. You can also be equal with me if we both don't bait, because you then can make your 2 acres or 5 acres the place for the deer to bed, let's say, even if I'm the one feeding them. Let me feed them. You can make your 5 acres what mine isn't, or you can make it the best funnel for them to get to my 200 acres through your 5. Like I digress here, but you can equalize your piece. I will not debate this, that if we took baiting away, you can equalize your piece to be just as good as mine, even if you're not planting food plots, and even if you don't have redneck blinds, and even if you don't have a premium access, you can, over time and with intentionality, make your piece as competitive as mine for the perspective of killing the deer that are in that geographic area. You can. And the part that I also am seeing here, and this is the other part of the concern for me with baiting, is I guess there's kind of 3 things that I'd want to talk through here. Number 2, and Mike Rex brought this up again. If you guys have not already listened to this, there's a podcast with Mike Rex on the Hunter Guys that, he brings up a ton of great topics for you to understand what are we against in these very unified lobbyists, and what are we against when we talk about the hunting community being at a threat for our great freedoms in these states and lawmakers that make laws relative to hunting that have nothing to do with hunting or no care for hunting or the sportsmanship of it or resource care or any of that. And what a problem that is. So what Mike brings up is, listen, and I'm obviously paraphrasing, so if Mike ever comes on here, we'll hear it from him. But if we remove baiting, we're going to lose hunters, because that 5-acre piece, the guy can't bait, therefore his kids can't have the hunting experience they want to have, or whatever argument you want to make. The guy that doesn't have a ton of time to do food plots or whatever, we remove baiting, we remove hunters. And I think he's right. Short term, you would. I think short term you would remove hunters. And his fear, and I don't think he's wrong in this fear or this reality, not just a fear, I think it's factual, that when we lose hunters, we lose votes. And when we lose votes, we lose. We just lose. And so I think you would have a short-term blip. I do. I think you would have a short-term blip. I think it would outpace itself in a 5-year window. I think in year 1, you have guys that are still going to bait. You have the hellions that are still going to bait. Good luck finding me, blah, blah, blah. They're still going to bait. And then, you just have guys that quit hunting in year 1, with the sting of maybe changing this and not allowing baiting. And I'm for supplemental feeding, by the way. I am for supplemental feeding, which is feeding throughout the off seasons. You cannot feed inside the hunting season. That's the version of supplemental feeding, I guess I would say I'm okay with, is being able to feed outside of hunting seasons. I don't think you should be able to feed at all. There's places you can supplemental feed and you have to be so far from it and all this stuff. I don't even think we do that. We rip the whole Band-Aid off and we go to supplemental feed only. To me, no baiting, no active bait piles during hunting season. Obviously, supplemental feed to me is the nutritional side because I actually care about animals and all that. So that's my deal on that. And you can't do that in Illinois, by the way. You can't even put a mineral block. You can do anything. So I'm hunting a state and I love a state and I will own ground in a state that is even more strict than what I'm saying. But I think over a 5-year window, we would gain back and way outpace any people we lost in hunting because of taking away baiting. I think we'd gain them back plus more. because you know how fun it is for me to load the truck, and I keep using Illinois, but you know how fun it is for me to load the truck right now to head to Illinois, knowing I'm going to hunt for me, and I have paid money to buy standing crops back from the farmers that own the ground. I've bought crops to stand and hunt over those crops, but I've planted food plots as well, and I've planted clover, and I've done all my stuff. I've done work to mitigate them not having food this time of the year. Here it is, January 5th, as of this recording, and I'm as excited as ever to go to a state that doesn't have bait, because it can be done. It can be done. It is so exciting to know when we drive 7, 8, 9 hours one way, we're not headed to a property that 10 yards across the fence, there's 1,000 pounds of corn on the neighbor. And I'm just going to twiddle my thumbs in a redneck blind over the most beautiful food plot there ever was. If that corn is strategically placed close enough to the bedding, don't even go here, folks. That corn will suck them in. So you've got to remove it. You've got to, period. You got to remove it. Here's the last thing. This is the last thing that I've seen with baiting that is like my biggest concern for Ohio. And if you're in Kentucky and listen to this, or North Carolina, or any other bait state for that matter, I'd be interested in your opinion as well. But what I see in Ohio is, again, 75 cellular cameras, 1,500 bushels of corn I have probably fed by now. Let's just, for everybody, because a bushel is 56 pounds, I have probably fed 1,500 pounds or 1,500 bushels, which is 84,000 pounds of corn. And you got to be like, dude, you're smoking crack. I'm not. I have fed that much this year. So talk to me about sample. Okay, here, talk to me about sample rate. And I've done that in the last several years, by the way. So don't let this year shock you. I want you to know how many deer that I've pictured over 150. I want you to think about feeding 84,000 pounds of, let's say it, 85,000 pounds of corn across 10 counties in the state of Ohio for an entire hunting season. I mean, we got 3 weeks left, so let's call it an entire hunting season here. How many deer over 150 did I picture? And the answer is less than 10. And you're going to be like, oh, come on, dude. Or you just must suck at cameras, or, oh, you just must be in the worst areas. I'd love every argument you're going to say right now. I'd love that to be accurate. I'd love it to be the case. Okay. Sample size has grown every year since I've done this, and it has only been the same answer. Now, let's talk about how many deer over 170 this year. Now, last year, this would have been a different answer. But this year in 2025, how many deer pictured over 170? Goose egg. None. Zero. Zilch. Now, I don't study my trail cameras as intimately as the gentleman. It's Brian Tanner, for everybody's sake. Brian runs cameras for me. Brian's been on the podcast. He's a great guy. Brian runs cameras, run baits for us, hunts on my farms, helps me keep stands hung, all the stuff. Brian's my dude. Brian may say we pictured, 2 170s at given random points, or, in 70 yards away in the picture, and we could just call it a 170 because it was a giant. But bona fide, had on camera, had to chase it, or, whatever. None. Zero this year. So let's just pretend. Let's just have some fun here so we all don't puke together. But let's just say it was a fluke year. Great. Let's do that one. Let's throw that one in the mix. Let's just say some of my properties sucked. Let's throw that one in there. That's a great one. Let's say, well, there was EHD in Southern Ohio, so they probably died. Now I will give you clout. Because, yes, I do have to back up. Prior to EHD, I had several over 170. So let's give EHD some credit, okay, this year. And whatever else you want to make up. Oh, the neighbor hit one of them with a car. Yeah, let's throw that one in there. That's a good one. Okay, all the experimental excuses we can make. Do you not think putting out 85,000 pounds of corn with cellular cameras in front of it across 10 counties across the entire season in Ohio, And when I talk about these counties, okay, just like hear me out because I'm just telling all here. These are good counties. I shot a booner in Meigs. So we're talking Meigs, Gallia, Vinton, Ross, Pickaway, Fairfield, Muskingum, Morgan, Athens, Hocking. I mean, I can just keep going. Like, it's good counties, okay? It's not like trash stuff. Gallia, I don't know if I already said that, but like, put whatever ball of yarn into the excuse box you want. Do it. We have an issue. We have an issue in Ohio. We do. And I'm worried for it. I'm worried for it. I'm not going to lie. I'm worried for it. Could I go, like right now, just BT dub while we're recording, I have a 160-ish deer on a piece of property that I'm really excited about, and I'm going to go chase it with a good friend of mine and hope we kill it because I think he's maxed out and I don't think he gets any bigger. So we're going to go chase him. Let's say we don't, let's say we don't. Like, how do we continue to do this as a state? And of course, goodness, I skipped one that we should just all throw in there. I mean, but are you not on these Ohio Big Buck pages? Are you not seeing all these giants? I mean, I know of 5 different 200s. Are you not seeing all these giants? Yeah. But do you realize the sample size of how small? Because let's be honest, if I shoot a 180, it gets out pretty quick, right? You shoot a 170, it gets out. 200, it gets out. It gets out. It's easy. When a big deer hits social media, it gets out. It's great. That's awesome. But the sample size, like when you measure, let's even say you listening to this podcast, of 20 deer over 170 killed in the state of Ohio. 20 deer of. Like, cause I'm an idiot and you just think, dude, this guy's just stupid. He doesn't know what he's doing. Okay. Well, let's do some math here. There's 29 million acres in Ohio. And of 20 deer over 170. I'm giving you some clout. So of one deer over 145,000 acres worth of sample size. One deer over 170. Okay. Got you, bud. Gotcha. Now, let me just throw some teasers. Okay. So you're all poo-poo on Ohio right now. No, I'm not. I love this state. I think this state could be the best state in the country for big whitetails. And I still think it possesses like 9/10 of the ingredients to be a big whitetail state. I'm telling you that I think there's more of a problem than most of us want to let on to, that the upper end bucks and the top end bucks and the things that we all, again, want to chase and measure our success with and measure where we buy a new Sitka this year or not. It's all predicated on these big bucks. And I've seen fewer and fewer of them every single year since becoming what I would consider a diehard in 2014 is when I killed some nice deer 2010 and earlier, but like 2014 was when I killed this deer that was a booner at the time of him hitting the dirt. So I think he's just under now, but at 2014, the light switch went off for me that you can do this with a bow in Ohio, and I emphatically have chased that since. Period. I just think I think we have a problem, and with baiting and like how do you put all this together? Like I think the baiting has had a huge deal to do with it, and here's why I think that and why I think I'm right. Because let me give you some tidbits, and man, this is so tough because obviously people are going to put me on the chopping block and say, don't give everybody the secrets. Quit telling people stuff. I'm not even going to say a state. You figure it out yourself. Go to a state that doesn't have baiting, that's considered a big buck state. Go to a state that doesn't allow baiting. Just even Google them, look up their statistics, and just go. Like next year, just go. Just listen to me for a second. Go to public land for all I care. Go to that state that doesn't have baiting. Go to public land and see what your hunt's like. See what your hunting is like. Assuming sample size and sample rate and everything is normal and you're not like meleeed by 50 trucks while you're there. Okay. Like you can't come back to our data pile here and say, well, I had a terrible hunt. Well, there was 50 trucks within 100 yards of your stand. That's a factor. Go to public land in a state that doesn't have baiting and have some hunts. I went to a state that doesn't have baiting this fall, and I have cameras in a state that doesn't have baiting, and it overwhelmingly has more big deer. Like, not even close. So, I think there's a problem. I just do. I'm sorry for this to like be heavy. Okay. Because this is the thing. I'm wrestling with this with you. I'm wrestling with this with you, but my commitment, and please, if you know someone who has a great voice or has a platform or has a whatever that I could partner with or like that loves God and could resonate with me and we could like link arms and like get more vocal about this, I believe we need to chase ridding baiting in Ohio. I believe as a collective hunting community, we need to emphatically seek it. Eliminating baiting. It's a huge, huge issue. And I could go through all these other issues, okay? Like we have other issues, okay? Like we do. We can go to the whole non-resident over the counter. We can go to crossbows for 4 months. We can go to thermal drones, right? That was hotly contested. Good stuff. And Mike Yoder and me are boys, by the way. But we could go to thermal drones. We can get all these other things. We can. And they're all valid. Like you're good. You're valid. They are valid. They all lead to a linchpin that would separate them better to me, which is corn piles. And so here's the thing that I'm wrestling with, and I have not decided what I'm going to do, if I'm going to do this or how I'm going to do this or whatever we'll do of this. But this is what I'm wrestling with for 2026, where I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. This is what we're going to probably do. I'm considering hunting in 2026 without bait piles. And you'd be like, oh, wow, that's so noble. What a hero. No, I'm taking that a little deeper. I'm considering hunting in 2026 without having bait piles, which would also mean that I'm considering in 2026 not running cameras over bait piles, which would also mean that my project farms that I sell, that I need to sell to make money to feed my family and pay my employees, would need to stand on their own without pictures of deer over bait. So this is a little bigger than just like, hey, cool, you're going to not saddle up in a tree with bait in front of you. No. This is like taking a position in my company and in my hunts. And I'm wrestling with it. I am. I'm really wrestling with, can our properties sustain that from the selling side? And believe me, I'm not putting any of you prospective buyers on the chopping block, but if you call or contact us or message us or comment on our post and blow us up like, well, you got no deer pictures except 2 pictures of a buck on a scrape. What do you want? You want 50 deer pictures with rolled gold all over the field? And yeah, that's what you want? Or do you want me to make a commitment that I'm going to sit here on my own podcast and in my own business and in my own life, I'm going to make a commitment to lead from the front and not bait. Now, here, let's just dispel some things here before all the warriors come at me and cut my head off. Does not mean I wouldn't run gravity feeders on my own properties, because like I said, I'm huge on supplemental feeding. It does not mean that I wouldn't set up gravity feeders on project farms. It does not mean I wouldn't have feed sites or locations of feed. What it does mean to me, and this is what I'm wrestling with, is like, how do you do this? How do you figure it out? It just does mean I'm planning not to have an active practice of having bait piles be part of our hunting strategies or having bait piles be part of our inventory strategies for a front tier marketing strategy for our farms. So wrestle that with me, wrestle it with yourself. I actually was going to have Kevin Mullet on here a while back, and we had like technical issues, and then we had to reschedule, and his life's been crazy. We haven't gotten Kevin back on yet, but I'm excited to do so because Kevin, I believe, is spearheading removal of baiting in Ohio. And I think Kevin's, I can't butcher this, it's Hunter's Advocate of Ohio, I believe, but they're pushing towards all the right things. And I'm just telling you that my money's where my mouth is. I'm willing to do something from a content creation and a branding and a land selling and all that whatever jargon standpoint you want to label me. I am willing to do something alongside of whomever to try and be more intentional with this. And I honestly think our better days are ahead of us, guys. I really do. So that's that. In 2026, I'm incredibly excited about a lot of the things that I've got going on in my company and a lot of the things I've got going on in kind of supporting companies. We're actually exploring, I'll give you guys just a little teaser here, but we're exploring in 2026 doing I shouldn't say just exploring. We're actively experimenting with buying land, more of the commercial aspects, and doing more commercial land sales, residential lot splits, those kinds of things that aren't really predicated on hunting or recreationalism or whatever. So, I think for us, like only having an avatar to sell to that is outdoorsmen or outdoorswomen and recreationalists and obviously diehard hunters is a little scary and dangerous. Just to have a business that is trying to grow and honor its employees and do better and be better and all that we only have one trick, which is just to sell hunting land to people that only want 150 inch bucks. So threw you under the bus. But, yeah, we're going after just more aspects of what do you do with dirt and how do you transact dirt and how do you honor God with dirt. And so we're working through that. But, yeah, that's where I'm at. Just to recap that, the whole, baiting and cell cameras and all that, like, of course, and I'm excited. I guess the last update I'll give you guys for something for 2026 for Legacy Acres Land Company that I'm really excited about is I finally got approval to build my barn at the property I'm going to eventually build a house on. And this is big for me because it's where we're going to start storing all of our equipment. I'm going to hire a full-time farm manager. If you're listening and you think that you would be interested in that, I'm going to hire a full-time farm manager in early 26. You would need to geographically be located close to Lancaster, Ohio, or be willing to move. So yell at me if that is, interesting to somebody. But point is with the barn, I'm going to build a podcast studio there as well. And I'm going to do in-person podcasting and bring in as many in-person guests as possible. I also plan to do kind of open houses, if you will, where we could just have even an open live podcast if you want to come and listen or be part of it. And I also plan to do like property tours to show you improvement projects and things that we've done that if you just want to learn, I want to continue to give back. But for me, this barn build has been kind of the nucleus of what I've needed to get done so that I can have everything centralized in one area. I've been fortunate to have properties that have barns or this or that, but stuff's just kind of scattered everywhere. And I'm really thankful that in early 26, we're fixing that. So that's that. That's where I'm at. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this. Just pray for me, and I truly mean it. I would appreciate your input. If you want to find me on socials or check us out at legacyacresland.com or find me on Facebook or DM us on Instagram, any of that is great. I would love to know your thoughts. I also would love to know your opinions. I'd love to know if you think we're missing it. I'm open book. I am an open book. I believe God is good, and I'm excited for 2026 for you and for me. So with that, we're out. I'm going to shoot a doe tonight. Have a great week, everybody. Thank you for listening to Legacy Through Land. We're kidding. We're quitting baiting, right? Let's quit baiting in 2026. That's all I got to say. Love you. Bye.
And that's going to wrap up this week's episode. If you're finding value in this content, we'd love to hear from you. It'd mean a lot if you could share with us how this podcast is helping you on your journey and let us know of any topics you'd like us to cover in the future. Be sure to connect with us on all social platforms at Legacy Acres Land Co. and subscribe to stay updated on when new episodes drop. We hope you've enjoyed this week's episode of the Legacy Through Land podcast, and we'll see you next week.